Um, Daily live, a very quick one. Not going to be a very long one today. And um, I'm sure today will be different than yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before because I think the energy may be starting to shift. So it's been a very challenging week for anyone watching the replay, and you're just going back to watch all of my replays over this week. There is some huge, big lessons in there, and there is a big shift that happens in there, and how people can really, truly gain a new perspective if we just stay long enough to get to know somebody and to get to know who somebody really is instead of assuming who people are. So that was a huge message in yesterday's live. As a young gentleman stayed until the end and found their way to a bit of a different thought and love. You just have to trust that if we just be kind and compassionate and caring to each other, that we've all been on a journey. And even those that are angry, or project that anger, it doesn't mean they're angry at, there may be angry at the world, but there's always something more to our story. And that's kind of what yesterday was. It's Friday. Yes, Karen, it is Friday. Good morning, Roxanne and Karen. Good morning. I'm in quickly. I'm getting ready to head down to Sylvan Lake to move some of my stuff into the house, into my new house. So, but I wanted to stop in here quickly first and have a little coffee and contemplation. I got no coffee done. I think I just left my coffee downstairs. Yesterday I had to leave to go downstairs and get the food that was at the door, which was amazing. I don't even know the name of the restaurant I got it at, but I don't order out a lot of food, rarely, because I can't eat very much. So everything that I ordered, I'm going to tell you what I had yesterday and where it was from. Because if you're ever in Leduc, I highly suggest this place. Let me see where it was. It was called the Modern Rice Asian Cuisine. I had never heard of it. It's in Leduc, but it was the Modern Rice Asian Cuisine. The food was incredible. If you're in Leduc, I highly recommend checking it out. I don't order out a whole lot, but the food was so good. Just putting that out there. It seems you all see me have to leave to go pick up the food at the door while we're waiting for energy to get in, while we're waiting for people. So while we're waiting, I am going to bring my cards up today on the screen. Let me get my cards. Hold on. While we're waiting for people, I'm just bringing the cards up. Just give me a second here. Okay. Here we go. And this was actually the card that came out yesterday. So this is the cover of the box, which is the card that came out for us yesterday during that whole live that looked like it was such a fiasco, but it was such a beautiful experience and such a beautiful moment of witnessing the power of love and sitting in the power and holding on to faith and strength and courage to keep going, to just keep going when things seem like they're going to just fall apart, to not to back down or not to threaten, to not become everything that is being projected at you. Don't project it back, to stay in love. And yesterday I challenged my way through that, and it turned out to be a beautiful ending. So, and this was the card that came out, and it's the cover of the box. And this deck of cards is inspiration and attitude. And it has been my journey through this life of being, inspired to be better than I was the day before, to recognize the areas where even when you think you don't have attitude and you think that's just who you truly are, is we don't realize that most of who we identify ourselves as, or what we try to angrily get people to believe of us, or what we project out into what we want people to believe us, it doesn't mean that's our truth. And it doesn't mean that's our identity. It's our shadow self. It's the parts of us that is truly protecting the real truth of us, that is softer, delicate, probably more probably even more caring than you could have ever imagined. So the parts of us that are our biggest truth are actually pieces of us that you can't even imagine really exist within you. If someone would have told me, you know, 15 years ago, maybe, well, no, not 15 years ago, but probably, 30 years ago, that I would be working, like, actively out living a life of a mystic, that I would be constantly walking towards that light into prophecy and doing the work of God consciousness and being that voice and being the connection to the angelic and writing books and creating oracle cards. I would have thought they were crazy. I knew there was something, and I always had the childhood dream of seeing myself on a stage. I thought I was a platform artist doing hair. And I thought I would always be the hairdresser, and I thought I'd be in New York somewhere, and I thought I'd be living that life, what I thought. And our human mind and what we think in our mind and what we create in our mind of our lives and what we think our lives should be is such a limiting thought process. And that's our message of today, is that, if we let our human mind think our existence into being, is that, what if that's only a quarter of what you can be? What if that's only a quarter of the picture? Because we try to control it, and we're so afraid to let go of that control. We're afraid to let go of the wheel. We become fearful to just let go and just trust that, you know what? Maybe it all has to dismantle. Maybe I have to lose it all. And I have lost it all. I really did. I lost everything in becoming this. And as I'm getting ready to move today, I find myself being, very emotional with the fact that this full circle moment, I came here 3 years ago, and all I heard was, just take the leap of faith. Just do this. It's not going to be easy. It is going to be very hard, but you have to do this. You have to be willing to walk away from what you know to become who you are meant to be. And so as I leave here, as I'm preparing to leave this house and to leave this city and to move on again, I think I've created some of my best work while I was here. I became the best versions of me, but I also went through some of my most deepest personal hells through here. And so there's that journey, and because it was a spiritual crisis, it is the dark night of the soul. It's that journey that we take when we're willing to surrender and say, you know what, maybe I did think myself into the existence of what I thought I was, only what I thought I was capable of, or the potential that I believed was worthy, and what I was conditioned to believe. Like, and not just by your family. When I talk about being conditioned, I don't mean by your family only. I mean by the world. Like, don't blame your family for everything that happens in your life. Because behind the fact that you may, everybody who played a role in your family, they were also a human being. And before anything, they were the person before the roles and the titles. And they were the people who also have a history. They also have their own trauma. They also have their own pain. They also have their, they've been through their story. And then they're thrown into these roles that they take on that they think they're prepared for. Nobody can prepare you for the roles. Just like nobody could prepare me for this, of whatever I am and whatever I'm doing. Nobody could have prepared me for this. And if they had to tell me that I would have to face being attacked, to being dehumanized, that I had to be, take so much emotional abuse from people, from strangers, that I would have to be treated, I would have turned around and fucking ran for the woods and said, I'm going to hide. I'm not doing this. But you just never know. You never know. And so when you think yourself into your existence, you don't realize how much of our identity, how much of ourself has a fear-based thought process. Because the fear, you don't recognize fear unless your body is tremoring, unless you got that anxiety. And that's the body giving you the warning that you've now maxed it out. That's like maxing out your potential. Now you've maxed out your fear. In the meantime, you've been living and existing in the fear and believing it to be comfortable. But until you max it, until it gets hit to the max, until something gives you that maxed out feeling, that's the only time that you stop. But it doesn't mean that you weren't living and creating a life based around a fear story. It is just like people who choose to, I have to settle down because I'm a certain age. So you choose to marry somebody who's, who's just there, who you think you could probably live with for the rest of your life, and you choose that to be your existence. Well, I'm 50 and I could never just do that. Right? And so when you make those choices and those decisions that you're like, oh, I'll just, this is as good as it is, this is the best it's going to get, I just have to settle for this. It's the same thing as eating food. It's like, oh, well, this is just what I have to eat for the rest of my life, and I just have to settle for this. And really, so we deny and deprive ourselves our whole lives to know what it is like to feel the ultimate level of love, to feel the ultimate sensation of the taste of something that tastes so good, to, out of fear that if I taste something that's really good, I'm going to get fat, or if I let myself actually love, then I'm going to be criticized. If I let myself be happy and joyful, then, people are going to think this of me, or they're going to think that of me. If I let myself be me, then the world is going to, judge me. So I can't be that. I can't. Well, we've lived in a whole world that has looked like that. We've existed in a whole world that has existed like that. That's hence where more than existing comes from. Hence where the everyday goddess oracle comes from. It all comes from that journey of, I had battled and fought my whole life to be me. And I remember one time I came downstairs and my father said to me, you don't hear me speak about my dad a whole lot. You hear me speak about my relationship, about myself and my mom, because her and I have been together like this my whole life. We work together. We've just been together. And so dad came down. I went down on the steps one day and my father said, he looked at my mother and said, what the fuck? What is she wearing? And are you going to let her go out in public looking like that? She said, she's the one who got to walk out to be laughed at. If she's okay with being laughed at, then who cares? He said, she's fucking weird. And yes, I am weird. And yes, I am odd. And yes, I am. But I was always unique. I never followed the status quo. I didn't try to be like other people. I never wanted to be anyone else. I never had a desire to look into the eyes of someone and say, I want what they have. I didn't do that. And that's the difference. And so that's why at 50 years old, I'm still not married. That's why I am getting married. That I can tell you. And I do have a love in my life. I do have a love of my life, but it's like those things that you do in this life and that you exist within. When you can let go of the crippling thoughts and the fears, when you can stop thinking yourself into the reality that you feel you have to create or that you think you have to create. And if you let yourself be guided in, is that you're going to have to go through the challenges. It's going to be hard. But you have no idea how really hard it's going to be. I would have never, but we don't need to know that. It's like knowing the day you're going to leave this earth. If you knew it, what would it change? Would you live in fear and not live and just wait for the day to happen? Or would you live it to the max? You don't know until you were in that experience, right? And so that's why we don't know those things. And that's where faith comes in. And so today, the message being that of let go, be guided by faith. Faith contains the ultimate level of love. It means that you have enough love, compassion for yourself, for something that's beyond us, that you have full faith. It is like being at some sort of like event where you have to trust the person standing behind you and you have to let yourself fall back into them. Well, it's the same thing. Can you trust yourself enough to fall into you? Can you really trust yourself enough to fall into you? And if you answer that with a no, then that's where you start. Start from that point. Start working from that point. And so even this morning, as we were getting ready, I was handing off the first prayer for the 7 days, the 7 weeks of prayers to Lisa. And I'm like, oh, I think I have to re-record it again. I think it's fuzzy. And then I listened to the first couple words and I stopped and it's not fuzzy. And I went, no, trust. The day the video was made was the day before today, right? It's the day before. So when we first start working on ourselves, you don't realize that you're existing in your yesterday, that you're really existing in your yesterdays and not in your today. And the moment you start to exist in your todays instead of your yesterdays, is now the opportunity. Now is when you're starting to trust you a little bit more. And we can all say it, I'm living for today, I'm in today. But the moment a fear, an overthinking, a OCD, a control, a pleaser, a fixer, a martyr, any of the trauma responses, a know-it-all, the project the anger, the moment that is the face of your today, or a mother to everybody, a father to everybody, the moment that's the face of your today, that means you are not existing in today. That means you are existing in your yesterdays. And as long as you are in your yesterdays, you'll never be able to move into what is the design of your tomorrows, because your yesterdays will always be in each and every day, which means you will always be existing in the past, because fear will be guiding your way. You will be living the life of the fear stories. And there's one thing to know, that it's a filing cabinet, and that it has every file that you ever had, that you ever existed in, so that you have a reference point. You're not here to max out the fear, and you're not here to live in that. It's here to know that this is the beacon. This is giving you the little beep, beep, beep. You're running out of gas. You're getting too close to letting yourself go over. This is a filing cabinet. You're here to go back, to reference back, to get that, but not to live in it. It's not your truth of today. It's not who you are today. This is who you are today. And that's how we start to step into the grace story. That's how we start to step into the light of us, and let yourself be vulnerable and real. This week was fucking messy. Every one of my lives was messy. It was crazy. My neurological condition was out of control. Yes, that's a different story, Stacy. Right? And so that's your existence, because that file has a name. That file has a personal name. And so the experience of the existence is what's different. But the personal name is the one that walks with you. So walks into every single why that is projecting you to not limit yourself to live a limited life. Because that little why, he's telling you you're going to max out your potential and your unlimited life, and not to be limited, not to let the fear to hold you back, so that you do live in that past story. You're projecting it forward to be the change. And that's the difference. So that one is open, right? It is open. It is not in the past. It is what we do with it to bring forth the change for the future. And that we have to record by next weekend. That we have to record someday this week or next weekend, Stacy. No doubt. That was just a loud message. Just handle it, Catherine. Just handle it. Exactly. That makes sense, Stacy? Good. Good, good, good. Yeah. And so, like I said, yesterday, like all week, I've been in my vulnerable, my real self. You have seen my neurological condition be out of whack, out of control. You've seen my, oh, not really? Oh, and see, the card is grace. So this is Gracie's weekend. What do we do with Gracie's weekend? Right? And, right, what do we do with Gracie's weekend? There's a reason why this card is up on the screen today. What would he be doing for Gracie? And still remembering. But what would he be doing for Gracie? Because know that he would be doing exactly what he does each and every day, pulling us to the pulling us forward to today. Because what does the hoodie say, Stacy? Yes. And so remember the hoodie. Remember the hoodie. Got to get up and ride today. Special weekend. No, I'll be with you this weekend too, Stacy. I will be with you. I might be in Sylvan Lake, but I'll be with you. I'll be holding that space for you. Yeah, and just like me, Stacy, it may be messy, but you'll just show up. And that was all week. And my speech was all crazy. When I'm all over when I'm really delayed in my mind in my speech, because you'll hear me do a lot of so's. So, those are things that I use as a gauge for trying to let my brain catch up. Yeah. If you're not nervous to get on the horse, you're not living. Love, Mr. Reed. Yeah, exactly. And I can't wait to wear my new hoodie. Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you. And there's going to be many more things than hoodies coming from that statement. So the unveiling is the card that's coming up for us today. And I can't wait to unveil. I'm honored, not can't wait. I'm honored that we will unveil Reed's story. I'm honored. He's the little man who is the superstar. That's who he is. He's the little man who truly was a star here, and he's a star there. And this is our card of the day, the unveiling. And this is Scarlet. Just says everything that I just spoke about. Terrified, but I'm excited. Yes, me too, Stacy. Just as terrified. But, we're going to be nervous, but we're getting on that horse. That we are. So this is the unveiling, and this is Scarlet. And this actually came up so this card is actually in Lisa Richard's forecast reading as well this week. She spoke about this card. And I love how the card really speaks to us, and it speaks a message to each and every one who picks up the card, whoever it's for, wherever it's going. It has a beautiful message. And the unveiling of this is, you kind of seen that unveiling this week, as you've seen kind of even me having to kind of come through that messy journey, to let myself be vulnerable, to be exposed, to be attacked, but to not back down, to find that truth, to be unapologetic for who we are and for what we are, and for sometimes having to be our truth, for also allowing ourselves to ask for help. And you're seeing the unveiling of what was Corey School of Magic. It has now become the more than existing Academy of Higher Consciousness, the unveiling of more truth, and the unveiling of stepping into who we really are. She's got those doe eyes. She's got that bewildered look, like she's looking out. She's not fearful. She may look delicate. But she's not. She's not fearful. Is that she's making a choice to choose to walk the journey. And nobody can make you walk the journey. Nobody can choose that for you. Nobody can choose for you to awaken to a truth. Nobody can force you into anything that you don't want to do. As much as we like to say people can, it doesn't. It's still the fact that we make the choice to choose to place ourselves in places that we probably shouldn't even be. And it's not that it's who we really are at our core. It's because we're afraid to sometimes speak up, or to speak our truth, or to be honest, to be that authentic self. And she's choosing. This card is the unveiling of making the choice to choose. So you choose. Nobody else can choose for you. And so the message that came this morning in a quote was, where did I put that? Do everything with love for the right reasons, and it will be the truth. And the other one that came up was, it's where I was the day. It's where we are the day. If you're living from where you were the day before, like, so if you're living in your yesterdays, you'll never be able to get to your tomorrows. And that's such a truth. And I've said it time and time again, but it's like, that means we're always living in the past. She's not living in the past. She's moving beyond the past. She's coming through the spiral. She's walking through the light, walking into the light, walking into the light of truth includes faith. And so the ultimate love, we don't know love until we have faith and until we can learn to trust ourselves. Until then, we are trusting what other people say and what other people think, and we only care about what other people think and what other people say. So when you're trusting that truth of what someone else says of who you are, and you believe, and you start to believe that to be your truth, then you really don't have the faith within you. Today, as we walk forward and we honor the card that came out at the end of yesterday, which was grace. Grace includes making a choice to choose to change the habits, to kind of revisit the areas of where you are showing up in those roles, in those faces that you wear today, that are all representations of the fear of what has existed prior to today. So whether you're always the mother to everybody, the father to everybody, the pleaser, the OCD, the fixer, the martyr, the know-it-all, the control freak, all of those things that you are bringing forth into who you are today, that you're wearing today, means that you are existing in your yesterdays. And that's the truth. And so to be able to walk into grace is to be able to take off all the masks, stop playing all the roles, and to know that no matter what, you don't have to be a mother to everyone to be loved. You don't have to be the fixer to everyone, the pleaser to everyone to be loved. You're not here to be loved or to be liked by everyone. You're here to be able to fall into you with faith. And that's grace. And the other side of grace is truly the interventions, is something that intervenes within our lives and our stories, that changes our path and our direction. And it may seem like it's the most horrific things, or might challenge us in the moment. But when we see where it guides us and what it guides and leads us to, and how we are chosen to be a part of the lives of those who come for shorter periods of times, and the blessing to know that that they chose us to walk that journey so that we could finish being the bearer, the carrier of the light, to finish out that purpose, that soul journey, to live on purpose, to make sure that we become the change agents of whatever it is that is in the tomorrows. But we cannot be it if we keep wearing the mask and the faces and the roles that have owned us, controlled us, that has kept us believing the old stories of the past. That's how we get attitudes. We don't know our attitudes. And that's how we have identities that are not really even our own identities, but we believe it to be us. Today and each and every day is the choice to choose to start unveiling, start revealing your truth by releasing and letting go of the fear stories, the unhealthy habits, or the ones that you've even convinced yourself are healthy habits, and releasing them and letting them go, and just falling into you and falling into that faith. And that's how we begin a healthy tomorrow. Much love. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. And Stacy, I am with you, holding the space with you all weekend as I pack, as I start to move stuff into my new home. Also will be a little piece of your family comes into my new home. So my chair, my door, Stacy, walking into my house, I have a green door, and then I have a yellow chair going into my house. And then I have added a blue, and then I've added a blue vase to go with it, so that I have all the colors, and an orange, because that also represents Sebastian. And then I added a splash of another another plant holder that's orange on the other side, so that when you walk into my house, you walk into grace, into the innocence of a child, and how innocent children are, and how powerful the children who are on the other side that have inspired me to keep going and inspired me to keep the fight and for me to be there for their families. I am honored. So those beautiful colors are in the entranceway, walking into my home, coming into my house, so that my world starts out by lighting up the entrance, the door of never being afraid to walk through a door or let a door close. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being a part of my world. Much love to everybody. Have a beautiful day. And if you're just coming in, please go back and watch this from beginning. And if you have not watched all of my weekly lives for this week, I do recommend watching them all for this week, because there's a whole story that has played out this week, and it may be something that may help you this week. So please watch them all if you haven't. Much love. Bye bye.